Now let's take a look at how we can utilize the proficiency scale in our classrooms. The first step in this process is to determine which scale you will be using during this portion of instruction. This can be done by referencing your Critical Concepts Guide, your IUG, or your correlation table documents. Now that you have determined which scale you will need, you will want to look through the targets on this scale. Oftentimes, a scale may contain more than one target, but that does not necessarily mean that every target will be addressed in your teaching. So determine which specific target or targets you will be focused on during this time. Once the necessary target has been identified, the planning process can begin. Remember, the target is our focus throughout this process. Since this process begins with planning, we want to plan with that target scale at the forefront. As we do this, a couple things to remember. How will you work the target scale into each part of the instructional protocol? And which activities or resources will best directly align to what the target is asking the students to do? Those are the things that we want to plan our instruction around. Now that we have planned our lesson so that it directly aligns to the target, it's time for the fun stuff, teaching it. Again, we want to focus on teaching to the target, something to keep in mind during our teaching. The needed use of foundational instruction will vary based on classes and individual students. So view the 2.0 foundational skills as an as-needed statute rather than a checklist of skills that must be covered prior to teaching level 3 instruction. We want to aim our teaching to the target and then fill in those foundational gaps as needed. Once we have instructed our students over the target skill, we want to now assess them and see how they're doing on their learning. Again, this is done according to the target. Now typically we have thought of assessments in the traditional sense, where each student takes a test at the end of a unit. In the SRG system, we call those more formal situations an obtrusive assessment. Where the change will occur in this system is that we can also assess students in other ways. One such way is through unobtrusive assessments. These are more informal in nature, such as simply using teacher observation to determine what a student knows. In fact, with unobtrusive assessments, students may not even know they're being assessed. A third way to assess student learning is by allowing them to generate their assessment. This is known as student-generated assessment and is often done through techniques such as a choice board. Regardless of the assessment type you choose to utilize, remember that the student score will be relative to the target being addressed. The final piece to this puzzle, as always, is to give students feedback based on their performance, which will allow them to learn how to improve on their score in the future.